I have pulled my 2014 Hyundai Santa Fe Sport into the garage and turned the wheels hard to the right so I can access the pump and tank area of the windshield washer. And I'll show you where that is real quickly. My symptom was that when I put fluid in my car, it leaked out on the floor overnight. And what I found when I removed the fender well, the fender liner actually, was the motor, or the pump itself was cracked and the liquid was leaking out there. So I'll show you how to get at that. If I can show you up in here. There's a screw, and I don't have another hand here, but that first one is way up in here. I think you can see it. The second one is right there. And then there's two more that are up underneath this panel here that you have to get at from underneath. There's one here, and then there's another one over on the other side, and they're very obvious to see. They're easy to get out. You need a Phillips head screwdriver. And then you just bend this fender liner back and wedge it against the wheel, and you'll be able to access the tank and the pump. Once we get the wheel well liner out of the way with a couple of screws, we expose the windshield washer tank and the motor right there. And what I've done is pull the hoses off both sides of the pump there, if you can see that, and allowing the fluid to drain into a bucket so I can reinstall it. It's reusable fluid. So we'll let this drain, and then I'll show you how to get that motor out of there. It shouldn't be very difficult at all. I'll be back in a minute. The fluid is just about drained from the tank now, so I think we can go ahead and start removing the motor. First step here, right up in here, if you can see it, there's a kind of a button on the electrical connection, and if you push that in and wiggle it and pull it up, it comes right off the top of the motor. Okay? Next step is to pull the motor right out of there, and the only thing holding it in is a little tab right up in here. In fact, I'll get you the new one. The new motor in my hand right here, if you can see it. Only real difference I see in it is this connector for the top is angled instead of straight up and down on the old one. Otherwise it's pretty much identical. But the little nub I'm talking about is right here on the top. See that? Right there. There's a little tab sticking out of the back of the tank that snaps over that. So you've got to kind of lift that little tab up and pull the motor back. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this with my hand in there. I think what I'm going to do is use a screwdriver. This will work better, I think, if I take a flat blade screwdriver and get it up underneath the tab that's on the tank, and at the same time pull back. And did you see the motor pop? The motor came back once the tab was released. See, it wiggles now. Now I'm going to wiggle this motor till it comes straight out, just like that. And it came out with the grommet on it. I'll show you this rubber grommet, and my new motor did not come with this new grommet, so I'm going to use the old one, obviously. Alright, set that aside. I'll be back when I'm ready to put the other one in. We are ready to start installing the new motor, and the first thing I'm going to do is put the old grommet in the hole at the bottom of the tank. Shove it all the way in, make sure it's seated up against the face of the tank. Next thing I'm going to do is take the new motor, and I think I'll go ahead and push it through the grommet and clip it in place before I put the hoses and electrical connection on it. So I'm just going to get it started here. Shove it into the grommet, take a little pressure. It's pretty much in there. And then I will pry up on the tab here on the tank so I can, there it is, it popped in. See, I got a good connection. yeah, the tab actually has a hold of it. Now I will attempt to hook up the electrical connection, which is just a matter of slipping it on there and popping it down till it clicks. You heard it click. Then we have two hoses, which I'd already pulled off. Whether you can, my hand's in the way or not here. Make sure you get the front to the front and the back to the back the way they came off. They just slide on over the pump. And there's the other one. There's pretty tight quarters in here. Maybe I can get at this better from the bottom. And here we go. I get it now. I can slide that over. Kind of twist it on till it hits the pump itself. So they're on good and tight. Not difficult at all. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some more fluid in. So the fluid comes right now is below the grommet line. So I'm going to put a little bit of fluid in there so we can test it before we close this thing back up. So I'll be back in a minute. Well, you can see that I've poured some more fluid in. I've got the fluid up to here. That'll be enough to test it. So now I'll see if I can take the camera with me and carry it over and start the car and see if this thing sprays before we go buttoning this up. Okay, let's take a walk. Onto the side here. And I'm going to start it up. Alright, she's running. And now I'll pull on the handle here. Oh, it's spraying. Look at that. Didn't even need to be primed. So we have success. I can shut it off and I'll show you how to button it up. Here we are back in the front of my 2014 Santa Fe Sport. We've installed the motor. I don't see any leaks, though I see something on the ground here. Where's all that coming from? That must have run, when I sprayed the windshield, it must have run out down a gutter. But here's the new pump in place, and I felt around the hoses and so on to make sure that I didn't have any leaks coming out of the hoses. So we're ready to go, start buttoning this thing up. And that's really putting this fender well back in, which is done with just 3 screws. There's one here, there's another one way up here in the dark that's difficult to see, and then there are 2 down here underneath on this panel that is horizontal. You get at them from down underneath the body of the car. Those are pretty easy to spot, and there's only 4 of them, and they're not too difficult to get out. So I'll go ahead and put these in rather than take you through how to put 4 screws in. And you got to kind of tuck this fender liner back in place, but I'll get that with 2 hands rather than trying to do it with the camera hand. Alright, talk to you in a bit. Here's the old motor out of my Hyundai Santa Fe Sport. Taking a close look at this thing, the pump is this white thing on the bottom, the motor is up in here, but this is the pump, I believe. But I found that the old one, which I have in my hand here, was split. The body of the pump body itself was split right there. I think you may be able to see that in the picture. And I have now epoxied it and tested it, and it works like new. Though I'm not sure that I'm going to take the time and trouble to put this back in the car. I did buy a replacement. I got it from Amazon, and I found it. I'm not sure who the seller was, but it's the exact same part number that the old one was. It's a 98510 2V100. There were a few changes in the design of the thing, but it didn't affect the form, fit, or function of it. The new one fit in there perfectly, and I think it was $22 and change, delivered free with Amazon Prime. So it was the best way to go. I did buy an aftermarket one that was a Chinese copy, I think. I got it here, installed it, didn't test it till I had it all buttoned back up and found out it didn't work, and I had to return it. And it was $18, so I think for $22 and peace of mind getting the original part from Hyundai was the best thing to do. So easy project, really very quickly done if you know what I found out in my investigation here. Good luck if you've got the same problem. It really wasn't difficult to fix.